week already. We're a little bit late out of the gates. We got a game in 2 days now, so 2 more sleeps and it's game day. Josh, haven't talked in a while on the podcast. What have you been up to? You excited for the season? Talk to me a little bit. Talk to me.
Whoa, is this a podcast now? Are we getting into the podcast business?
I
I
guess.
don't
I
even
guess
know.
it
Oh
is.
my god. I think we'll just wing it. We'll be the podcast boys on this first week. First inaugural week of season 2 of Dash. I can't get into it with you. You know we got a juicy week, a juicy season. This team's very hungry. And man, I'm so excited. I don't even remember what you asked me. I'm just excited. I got to get that off my chest.
I didn't
Season
even
2,
ask anything.
baby.
I, I didn't even ask anything. We're just so obviously it's game week. It is a smaller game with Southern Utah on the docket. So we're going to start off with the biggest story revolving around ASU football right now, which is the investigation. And for any of you out there that don't understand, we're not going to stand here and pretend like we're experts, but we're both very filled in on the topic because it's a lot of technicalities going around this investigation because it's he said, she said. There's a picture of Herm Edwards, but his back is facing the camera, so you can't tell it's actually Herm Edwards. There's a lot of that stuff. So here's what we do know. ASU is under investigation for having recruits on campus and on, for tours during a dead period during COVID. And they were paying for flights, meals, hotels, all that stuff. ASU was. So they weren't directly paying cash to these recruits, but they were paying for a lot of amenities during a COVID dead period. And it sounds to me like they absolutely did break these rules. Remember, they only played 4 games last season because they had one of the biggest COVID outbreaks in the country. We talked about it every week on how it sucks that a game's being missed, blah blah blah. But wow, it turns out they were having people on campus when they weren't supposed to. I wonder if those two are connected at all. Probably, maybe not. You never know. But so Antonio Pierce, the recruiting director, is under some hot water. There's already been 3 coaches that have been put on administrative leave, and Antonio Pierce in a press conference said he's not worried about his job. But the biggest thing about this investigation is there's no precedent set on it. There's no team that has broken a COVID rule. Obviously, COVID's new to in the last year and a half, 2 years now. So it's not necessarily there's a precedent for what ASU did and something that we can expect. Are they going to lose a bowl game? Are they going to lose scholarships? Are they going to get hit hard because this is the NCAA's kind of last swing at controlling a program over what they can do with NIL being passed. So I mean, there's a lot of question marks. So outside of the investigation, Josh, how do you think this team is going to be affected on the field by this? Do you think it's going to loom over their head at all? Do you think, or what do you think is going to happen?
It's tough. I think this can affect the team in very many different ways. Unless you've got a guy like Herm Edwards who's gonna keep the train going in the right direction. No pun intended. And I know I've listened to Herm talk about this quite a lot, and it's honestly kind of hard to hear him talk about this because he treats this as a like it's nothing. He really doesn't want this investigation to get on these players' heads and affect their focus for the season.
Yeah.
This is like a year-long preseason at this point. You know what I mean? We've kind of had a full season, or not even a full season, a quarter of a season that we just threw away, and been practicing this game plan. He's not worried about it. These other coaches, like you said, Antonio Pierce, they're not worried about it. And I'm not sure if the viewers are aware, but we heard about this initial NCAA investigation back in June. Arizona Republic Jeremy Clough reported about 2 or 3 days ago that the actual interviews just started. So that's kind of timely that the NCAA wants to start investigating. 3 of it was Adam Brenneman, our tight end coach,
who's on administrative leave already. He already got put on leave.
Yeah, and Chris Hawkins and Prentice Gill. All of the 3 of them are on administrative leave. But when you take away a receivers coach, a DB coach, and a tight ends coach, you're gonna mess with these players. At least early on, a lot of these players on the offense, at least some of them, a little earlier on in their careers, and you're taking away a lot of their mojo with these coaches, and that's not good. Looking at that point, but I don't know. I trust Herm. I think this is really just nothing. They had a couple of high school kids to the stadium and toured the facilities. What are we gonna get? I think a slap on our wrist. This might be something that Herm kind of looked at. Talked to some people, saw the possible worst result, and just said, hey, screw it. That kind of seems like a little Herm mentality to me. You know what I mean? He's a big baller.
Yeah.
He's a big baller.
There's two aspects of the investigation that I think are very important. Neither of them are related. So the first one is, remember when Baylor basically, when RG3 was there and they were one of the best programs in the country, they had a bunch of investigation. I believe it. They were, giving their players prostitutes and stuff like that, but don't quote me on that. That could be incorrect. But their investigation, I think that was 5, 6, 7 years ago at this point. It just came down this summer, their investigation. So not that This is going to take that long, but I don't think this is going to be resolved by the end of the season, because we know how the NCAA works. They take their sweet time on everything, unless it's canceling the NCAA basketball tournament last year. They didn't take their time with that, but they take their sweet time to make sure they get everything right. And they'll probably give out not unjust, but an incorrect ruling on the punishment that is, whether it's good or bad. It's either going to be too light, probably too strong. They're never really correct in their punishments. I'll say that. But the second part is, between Hawkins and Prentice Gill, the two guys put on administrative leave, between them two and Antonio Pierce, before this happened, those three were known as three of the best recruiters, not only just in the Pac-12, but, kind of nationwide. And it really begs the question, was it just COVID we were breaking these rules? Was it, how long has this been going on? We've seen the steady rise in recruitment since Antonio Pierce got here. And is it, you kind of have to be naive to say, oh, well, this is the only time he did it. We're going to look past it. It was COVID. He was used to following normal rules, yada, yada, yada. You really got to ask the question is, have these men been doing this in the past? And it's a question that begs to be asked, and we don't have the answers to it. But, like I said, with missing games with COVID last year, while we broke COVID rules, it's like, those things aren't necessary. Those things are pretty closely connected. So the question really begs to ask, and you really got to hope that, ASU doesn't deal with another issue of COVID again this year.
Yeah. And, that could very, very much well be a possibility. I mean, I'm really not too sure if the NCAA has taken a stance on how they're going to approach COVID,
forfeitures.
Tracing. Yeah. And that seems to be along the case of what it's been a lot for, a bunch of sporting events that have come back. I'm pretty sure, I guarantee you we're going to see the same thing in college basketball when that comes back around. You test positive, you're done. That's the NFL is doing that. That's where I remember that from. You test positive in the NFL, your week is done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just COVID is like I said about the precedent. It's like, the swine flu didn't derail sports like this. So it's really just, it's unprecedented what the times we're going through. And obviously we don't even count really ASU's season last year as a season. They played 4 games. That's basically, the NFL preseason. And one of them was U of A. So it's like 3 games in a high school JV team that we played. So, it really was not anything last year.
You're being generous.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing about this investigation, though, is how will it affect this season? And we don't have concrete answers to that. But the good thing about this team, which we're going to talk a lot more later, is they have all the veteran leadership in play. I want to say they returned 20 or 21 of 22 starters from last year. Obviously, we lost Jermaine Lole because of injury. He's out for the season, which arguably outside of Jayden Daniels, he was probably our best player. So that's a huge loss. But,
21 starters.
Yeah, 21 starters. So outside of Lole now, with Lole gone, we're returning 20 starters. It's offensive line that's been there. It's not. I really think that a lot of these guys are trying to get drafted next year. I seriously think we could have up to 10 players drafted next year. And I'll try to go through the list off the top of my head in a segment or two. But it's going to be tough because there is going to be this thing looming over. But if there's a team to do it, it's going to be this team, because if you could imagine, freshman year Jayden Daniels, second year Herm Edwards, blah blah blah, and then we have COVID coming, kind of at the end of the season or in the off season, it would just be a whole nightmare to deal with if this was happening, a year or two ago. So I think it's a good time. I think ASU is going to put all their chips in the basket for this season, because what if they do get screwed next year? There's not a whole lot you can do about it. And they have the team to win a Pac-12 South and compete for a Pac-12 championship this year. So I really think we're going to see a really high risk, high reward opportunity this year with Herm Edwards and his team, especially Antonio Pierce in that defense, because they have a lot to prove. And if they have a bad year, let's say they win 7 games, they go, 7-5. I don't know if that's enough to keep this coaching staff on. And I know they've done a good job, but with the investigation going, the expectations that the team has this year, I think they have a lot riding on this season.
Yeah, the expectations for this team this year are sky high.
Mm-hmm.
And, you got to love it. I mean, we got to sit up here and hold this team to a near perfect standard, because, 99% of the people who watch college football do not watch the ASU versus the Colorado games, or the Colorado-Utah, ASU-Utah games. Those are literally the hardest games for these teams. The games where you go in there and it's a lesser opponent than you and you play down to them. Maybe that's just actually ASU's problem. Those are the games that the defense is really, and Antonio Pierce and this defense this year are honestly really, really going to have to step it up. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But Jayden Daniels, I'm going to go out there and say I think he's going to be a step higher than what he was at last year. But he's going to somewhat underperform to the level where this defense is going to have to carry us. And, that goes back down to expectations. What can we realistically expect from Jayden Daniels? I'll just straight up ask you. We'll move on to our next segment.
Yeah, great.
Wills, do you think Jayden Daniels can become a first-round pick? This season he had his full year, 4-game U of A domination preseason, and he's had time with this offense. Does he have what it takes? We know he's got the running back group. Does he have what it takes in himself and, his arm to, potentially be a first, 20 round pick? Let's go 20th pick in the first round.
I think absolutely. A lot of the names that you're going to see throughout this year are going to be, the Sam Howells, the Spencer Rattler for the Arizona boy, who I played against actually, but Spencer Rattler, Keaton Slovis. You're going to see Matt Corral's name. You're going to see Emory Jones. You're going to see, let's see, who are some other names that come out this year? The Liberty quarterback. I forgot who he is, but he's supposed to be a very high prospect this year. They're going to see, JT Daniels is coming out this year. So there's quite a few.
He's like 7th Heisman list.
Yeah. So, outside of Rattler, Hal, and Slovis, I do not see why Daniels can't be the first of that second tier behind those 3. And I was just looking at one before the show that had, I'm drawing a blank on that. Malik Willis, that's his name. The thing about him is he succeeds at Liberty. He's very athletic. And the reason why I think Jayden Daniels, I have something on my screen right here. Jayden Daniels is going to succeed mightily is because ASU's strong point is everywhere but the wide receiver core. And yes, I know that's an issue when you're relying on the quarterback. But the reason I think he's going to succeed is because he's going to show that he can run for 500 yards, but he's not doing it in a Lamar Jackson way. In 12 games, 500 yards, that's, 40, 50 yards a game. He can do that pretty easily. In my opinion, I think he can do that. About 40 yards a game rushing, because he's going to have games with 100. He's going to have games of 70, so on and so forth. I think if he can make these wide receivers look better on top of having a dominating defense, I think he's going to shoot his draft prospect right up. And keep this in mind. people love what have you done for me recently. Although his stats haven't been great, if he has a successful year and let's say ASU is competing with USC and Utah and maybe even wins the Pac-12 South, he's going to be on a top 10 team. If ASU wins the Pac-12 South, they're probably going to lose max 2 games. And we're already preseason ranked 25. So that means by just process of elimination, they're going to be a top 10 team. If he's a quarterback of a top 10 team, there is no doubt in my mind that he is going in the first round. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to get drafted over the Liberty quarterback, over, a Jayden Daniels, because ASU isn't known for its stud playmakers like Bama, Georgia, LSU, that put out these NFL wide receivers. I guess ASU does have 2 NFL wide receivers that came out recently, but, that's not regular. And the thing that I think is going to make ASU special that's going to help out Jayden a lot is how often do you see a dominating defense in the Pac-12? We've seen it with Utah. We've seen it with Washington a few times. Outside of that, it really doesn't help you. Look at some of those Utah teams. They were below average at best on offense with a good running back, but dominated defensively. Yeah, dominated defensively. And they almost made it to a college football playoff. They were 1 game away from beating Oregon and making a college football playoff. And who's to say that this defense, which is on paper supposed to be one of the most dominant in the country, cannot just lean a little bit on Jayden Daniels. We don't need the defense to do everything for us. We need the defense to be supportive. Right. And that's where I think this ASU team is going to be very special, because I think the wide receivers can be made a lot better by Daniels, whereas our running backs, we're going to run the ball a crap ton. I think we're going to get a little more into the game plan in the next segment talking about Southern Utah, but I really think they have all the tools to succeed at a really high level, especially in a weak Pac-12.
Yeah. I mean, when you put it that way, it's really hard to, argue that he can't be, a first-round pick, because if the defense performs like we think they're going to perform, then, he really, realistically, against our schedule, looking on here, he doesn't have to put up more than with him, his legs are his arm. I'm talking about Jayden himself. He really doesn't have to put up more than 2 to 3 touchdowns a game, and that's kind of banking on, a couple of defensive, interceptions or fumble recoveries, and, at least 2 from our running back group. So it's kind of up to Jayden, and I know our wide receiver group isn't really where we'd like them to be, considering, where our entire program's at, and then the wide receiver group is just a tick or 2 down. He will have the ability and the opportunity to make them and himself look better, and just look smarter in, situations, 3rd and short situations. I think Ricky Pearsall this year is going to be used very good with maybe some nice quick routes, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3, sort of situations like that. And those are the situations where, he's not letting, 50-yard bombs fly to these kids. But, if he's throwing accurate passes within, 7 yards, hey, there's guys in the NFL that make a living doing that. You know what I mean? With a good running back. Yeah, or now, right? So, I mean, college football is a different game, but I think Jayden, it's all up to Jayden. He's had the time working with his coordinator. I think we got a little tight end game now. I don't think we were really working with that in the past 2 years. And at least not with Zach Hill, you know what I'm saying? His talent and offensive mind. So it's really up to Jayden. He should know his playbook. He should know, some defensive tendencies within the Pac-12. And so I think he's going to put some haters in the dirt, but I think like we've seen from in the past, there's going to be a couple of slip-ups and some pretty crucial games where we need to win. But hey, Jayden, if you're listening, prove me wrong, baby.
Hey, I'm going to give you one name to look out for as one of Jayden's favorite targets this year, and it's not a wide receiver. Obviously, look out for the running backs out of the backfield. No one is going to be surprised by that because we saw it all last year. But look out for the name Curtis Hodges, the tight end. It's someone he's a redshirt senior, so he's going to be a 5th-year player for the program now. He's comfort in the program, knows his plays. The man is like 7'5", not actually. He's like 6'8", 6'9". He's huge. He's a big target, and he's really put on a lot of weight. And apparently in practice, the word is that, you know, him and Jayden have a little bit of a connection, especially in the red zone because of his big frame. So he may not have a lot of yards, but look for that guy to have 5, maybe 6 touchdowns this year. We can come back to this, but look for him to be a very popular red zone target for Jayden Daniels.
Whatever gets the job done.
Exactly.
He ain't picky.
So we have 10 minutes left. We want to get into a little bit of breakdowns, not only of just the ASU game, but also talking about kind of the Pac-12 South as a total. Josh, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the Southern Utah game because hopefully it's a slaughter. I'm going to say that. I don't think I can jinx this one. If we do, I am sorry, Sun Devil Nation. This is 100%. It's on me if we lose it. But, you know, the strategy I think is going to be pretty simple. Make them beat you down the field. We're going to run the ball down their throat. Our offensive line is better and more athletic than their defensive line, and our running backs can have make you miss moves and breakout speed in space. They're going to make their linebacker. They're going to set up one-on-ones with linebackers in space, run the ball down their throat. Don't be surprised if what we saw against USC with, you know, where we ran the ball 13 straight times. Don't be surprised if we see that again. And I think it's pretty plain and simple. Yeah. They're going to try to maybe get a few blitzes in and have the starters out by halftime because this is not an important game. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I was about to say halfway through the third quarter, 80% of the starters should be out and on the bench, just some Gatorade in their bellies.
Although we can't get ahead of ourselves because if you remember last year, was it 2 years ago? Because our first game last year was USC. 2 years ago, we played Kent State, and that game was pretty dang close all the way until like the end of the third quarter. So we'll see. But I think the more important thing here is, what do you think the Pac-12 South is going to look like? This is our first show back. We might have talked about it in the past. Give me top 3 in the Pac-12 South and top 3 in the Pac-12 North. You don't have to give me records, but give me who wins the North, who wins the South, and then who wins the Pac-12 championship game. And give me a Y on the championship game.
Oh, so now based off of my calculations, no, I think you know this is going to be in the South at least. This is going to be the ASU and the USC show. You know, right now everybody knows Keaton's draft stock is a couple ticks higher than Jayden. But, you know, Jayden loves that underdog mentality.
Yeah.
He's a dog, literally. I mean, that boy's filthy. This is going to be, you know, his season to duke it out with Keaton Slovis for, you know, I'll go for best quarterback in the Pac-12 because, I mean, that's what it kind of comes down to. I say, you know, the Pac-12 South title game is going to come down to probably ASU playing USC.
Yeah.
You know, maybe on this, we play them on the 6th of November.
That can't happen in the
title. We got a couple games after that.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not going to be the title game, but it's going to be like a fake for the Pac-12 South.
My apologies. I see.
Further down November. Yeah, and then and in the North, I think you know, Oregon's going to run away with it again, like they do every year. And does Oregon State have that one running back coming back to that program?
I don't think so.
No?
Jefferson, I think his name was. I think he's gone, but
sorry, Morgan. It's going to be another tough year for the Beavers up there. Corvallis. But no, I have ASU on my full schedule chart. I have ASU gone 10-2 in the regular season. I think the toughest 2 games of the year, and I have them as losses, but I'm already kind of switched on BYU already, just thinking about it, are, you know, BYU and USC. But I think BYU, if, you know, we really, you know, defend the crap out of this team, they have really young quarterbacks who've been fighting for a spot. I think we can pressure them early, you know, maybe fast and later, and maybe come out with a win, but man, that defense is going to be tough.
So before you move on to the North, I want to talk to you and give you kind of my South update. I think it's really important to go into the UCLA game, which is our 5th game of the season, undefeated. So it goes Southern. I'm going to read it out really quickly. I know it's kind of long, but Southern Utah, UNLV, those are both at home. BYU on the road, Colorado home, UCLA on the road, Stanford at home, Utah on the road, Washington State at home, USC at home, Washington and Oregon State on the road, and U of A at home to finish out our regular season.
By 4 tutties.
By 6, but who's counting? So my South prediction is, I am sorry to my friends Cole and Sammy Moore over there with Ute Stash. I've been seeing a lot of hype on Twitter with Cam Rising, and I forgot who they named their starting quarterback. I don't think I'm not buying it. I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. So they may run the ball, they may play good defense, but good luck putting up over 21 points a game. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope it's more competitive, but my South is looking like this. Obviously, I'm picking ASU to win. I think they beat USC, and I think it's decided between, like you said, I think ASU goes 10-2. I think USC goes 9-3. And then I think third place is going to be UCLA. I know we talked about this before the show. I don't think they're that good. I'm not buying into Chip Kelly. They played Utah, Todd Graham. We saw Todd Graham use all 3 of his timeouts with 6.5 minutes left to go in the first quarter. That is Coach. It's a timeout Todd is his nickname. Actually, that was what it was when it was at ASU. It's timeout Todd, because he was so bad with his timeouts. Good luck against LSU next week, UCLA. Don't lose by 40. Don't embarrass the Pac-12, all right? I've heard all this talk. I'm picking you now, picking you ahead of Utah. Please don't go out and lose by 40. That's all I'm asking.
Hey, I'm not a betting man, but if I was, LSU 100.
And for those that have been following Dash Sports.
Hey, and I will.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
All I was going to say is, for those of you that have been following Dash Sports, you know that Josh and I have a close relationship with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the UCLA quarterback. As the man once called me, and I quote, a half of a meatball on Instagram. So we are pretty good friends. You could basically call us, first name basis type people, but I'm really hoping that they don't get embarrassed and look good for the Pac-12, because that will only help if, I think Oregon's going to get absolutely flattened by Ohio State when they play. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, man, the Pac-12 needs a good team, a 10-2, 11-1 team. And I really think it's going to be ASU or Oregon. So before we finish up, give me your North predictions really quick and who wins the Pac-12.
So I have Oregon winning the North. I think, we'll see Washington maybe in the mix, as well as Stanford. But I think winning the Pac-12, I think it's really going to come down to either Oregon or ASU. You just can't deny the quality of the program up there in Eugene. I mean, Mario Cristobal, they really do. They just recruit the best. They really don't even have to try as hard as Pierce and Herm, because it's just kind of ridiculous the precedent they have up there, and those guys are held to a higher standard than ASU are, and that's kind of how it is, just to even get into the program. But and before Wills gives close, I want to tell you this. We've been harping a lot on Jayden Daniels and this team, and we've had all this time. They've had all this time playing together and how they need to perform. I think this year is the year that we need to see the best of Herm Edwards.
Absolutely.
As well. Herm Edwards cannot have any coaching mistakes, and I think he's kind of blowing off this NCAA investigation thing, but I think this is kind of already maybe a little hiccup in the road. Mm-hmm. Maybe he pulled the trigger on recruiting a certain way over not choosing not to do that. Mm-hmm. He did it, and kind of facing the fire right now. So
I mean, yeah,
we'll see how it affects us.
We mentioned it earlier. I really do believe that if he has a down year, that he could be on his way out. I'm not saying he's on the hot seat by any means, but that's the way I look at it. Really quickly before we wrap up, I'm going to give you my Pac-12. I think Oregon goes 10-2. I think Washington goes 9-3. And I think Stanford goes about 7-5. Shout out to my boy Noah Williams. He's leading Stanford this year. But I think Oregon's going to win the Pac-12. I think ASU is going to, become runner-up. I think their athletes are going to overwhelm us, especially our wide receivers. I think ASU is going to have a fantastic season, but that is all we have for tonight. I know it wasn't a lot into the Southern Utah game, but we will be back every Monday. It should be Mondays. We just had a little hiccup this week, but all of Devil Dash, your favorite Pac-12 show, should be back on Monday or whatever day of the week they stream. Devil Dash will be on Mondays, and we will be giving you a recap of the Southern Utah game and looking forward to that UNLV game week 2. So thank you for joining. I'm Wills, and for Josh, we will